The whispers started before she even sat down. Row 23. Seat B. A middle-aged man in the aisle seat recoiled visibly when Emma Hayes approached, his eyes scanning her body with undisguised contempt. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered, loud enough for 3 rows to hear. Emma's hands trembled as she tried to buckle the seatbelt, her face burning with shame while he pulled out his phone and started recording. Emma Hayes was 38 years old, a data analyst from Seattle flying to Boston for her sister's wedding. She'd saved for 6 months for this trip, practiced her maid of honor speech 100 times, bought a dress she actually felt beautiful in. But in this moment, crammed into seat 23B with a stranger's hatred radiating beside her, all that confidence evaporated. This flight was supposed to be the easy part. If you believe everyone deserves dignity, especially at 30,000 feet, hit that like button and follow this channel for stories of women who refuse to shrink. Now, let me tell you how one flight attendant changed everything in a single moment of courage. Emma had woken up at 4 a.m. that morning, her stomach already tight with anxiety. She'd flown dozens of times before, but the dread never lessened. The airport security checkpoint, the narrow airplane aisle, the armrests that pressed into her sides, the apologetic smile she'd perfected for seatmates who looked disappointed when she approached. She'd worn her most comfortable clothes, black leggings and an oversized sweater, something that wouldn't draw attention. She'd skipped breakfast, telling herself it would make the seatbelt easier to buckle. In the Uber to the airport, she'd practiced breathing exercises from a meditation app, trying to convince herself this time would be different. But standing in the jetway, watching passengers stream ahead of her toward the plane, that familiar panic crept up her spine like ice water. Just 6 hours, she told herself. You can survive anything for 6 hours. Her daily life in Seattle was carefully constructed for safety. Emma worked from home 3 days a week, analyzing datasets for a healthcare company, where her brilliance with numbers spoke louder than her appearance. Her apartment was a sanctuary, 3rd-floor walk-up in Capitol Hill, filled with books and plants and her rescue cat, Fitzgerald. She had 2 close friends, both from college, who never made her feel like she needed to apologize for existing. On weekends, she volunteered at a literacy nonprofit, teaching adult immigrants to read English. Kids loved her, saw past bodies to hearts. Emma was kind, wickedly funny in small groups, generous to a fault. But she'd learned to make herself small in public spaces, to apologize preemptively, to lower her voice and shrink her presence. She'd been doing it so long she barely noticed anymore, this constant self-erasure. The man in seat 23C was named Derek Sullivan, though Emma wouldn't learn his name until later. He was 42, a sales executive for a pharmaceutical company, wearing an expensive suit and radiating entitlement. He'd been on his phone since boarding, loudly complaining about a delayed connection, snapping at the flight attendant who offered him water. When Emma appeared in the aisle, his expression shifted from irritation to disgust. "Seriously?" he said, not quite under his breath. Emma's heart sank. She recognized that tone, that look. She'd seen it in restaurants, at the gym, on buses. The look that said she was an inconvenience, a problem to be solved, something less than human. Derek didn't move his leather messenger bag from the middle seat, forcing her to ask him to move it. He sighed dramatically, made a show of relocating it. "This is going to be a long flight," he announced to no one in particular. The first microaggression came as Emma tried to sit down. Derek pulled his arms in tight to his body, pressed himself against the window, making exaggerated gestures of discomfort. "Can you at least try to stay on your side?" he said, his voice carrying. Emma mumbled an apology, though she was entirely within her seat space. Her cheeks burned. Around them, other passengers pretended not to notice, but she could feel their sideways glances, their judgment. She buckled her seatbelt, relieved when it clicked without needing an extender this time. Small victory. But Derek wasn't finished. He pushed the armrest down between them, hard, so it dug into her side. When she flinched, he smirked. "Airline seats aren't made for everyone, you know," he said. The woman across the aisle looked up sharply, her eyes meeting Emma's for a brief moment before quickly looking away. No one said anything. No one ever did. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Derek's hostility escalated. He pulled out his phone and started typing loudly, his thumbs aggressive on the screen. Emma caught glimpses of his text to someone named Brad, stuck next to a fat woman who can barely fit in her seat. "This is exactly why I pay for upgrades." He wasn't hiding the screen, wanted her to see. Then he opened his camera app. "This is ridiculous," he said, angling the phone. "I'm documenting this." Emma's blood turned to ice. Was he filming her? She turned her face toward the aisle, tried to make herself smaller, though there was nowhere to go. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "Please don't." He lowered the phone but kept it in his hand. "Public space," he said. "I can film whatever I want." The flight attendant, making final safety checks, walked past without noticing. The plane's engines roared louder, drowning out Emma's racing thoughts. She blinked back tears, determined not to cry. Not here, not in front of him. The worst humiliation came after takeoff, when Derek flagged down a flight attendant. Emma recognized her, a young blonde woman who'd smiled warmly during boarding. But now her professional mask was in place as Derek launched his complaint. "I need to switch seats," he said, not lowering his voice. "I paid for this ticket with the expectation of a comfortable flight, and this situation is unacceptable." He gestured toward Emma without looking at her. "She's taking up space in my seat. It's a safety issue." Emma wanted to disappear, to melt through the floor, to cease existing. Every passenger within 3 rows could hear. Some were openly staring now. The flight attendant's smile tightened. "Sir, I'll see what I can do, but the flight is completely full." Derek's face reddened. "Then she should have bought 2 seats. That's what people her size are supposed to do, right?" His words were knives, each one precisely aimed. Emma's vision blurred with unshed tears. The flight attendant, whose name tag read Jessica, glanced at Emma with something that might have been sympathy, or might have been agreement with Derek's assessment. "Ma'am, are you comfortable?" she asked, and Emma heard the subtext. "Are you willing to be the problem? Are you going to cause a scene?" Emma had learned long ago that the easiest path was compliance, apology, self-blame. "I'm fine," she whispered, though she was anything but fine. Her hands were shaking. Her throat was tight. She felt the eyes of everyone around her, judging, agreeing with Derek, wishing she wasn't there. Jessica nodded and moved away quickly, relieved to escape the situation. Derek made a disgusted sound and pulled out his phone again, muttering about filing a complaint, about writing a review, about how airlines needed to do something about people like her. Emma closed her eyes and tried to remember why she was on this plane. Her sister, the wedding, being part of something joyful. But all she could feel was shame. In her mind, a familiar voice started its cruel narration. "This is your fault. You knew this would happen. You should have lost weight before the trip. You should have bought 2 seats like he said. You're ruining his flight, ruining everyone's flight, just by existing." The voice had been there for years, since she was 10 years old, and her father first put her on a diet. Since her mother said, "You have such a pretty face, if only." Since the boys in high school called her names in the hallway. Since her college roommate asked if she could diet in private. Since her last boyfriend left her with the explanation that he just couldn't be attracted to someone her size. The voice was mean and constant, and she'd learned to believe it. She was the problem. Her body was wrong. She took up too much space. She deserved this treatment, deserved Derek's cruelty, deserved to feel small and worthless. That's what the world had been teaching her for 28 years. But underneath the shame, very deep, was a spark of something else. A memory from childhood, before the world taught her to hate herself. Emma at 8 years old, before her body became the thing people noticed first. She'd won a science fair with a project about weather patterns. Stood on stage, accepting her ribbon while her teacher beamed with pride. "Emma sees connections other people miss," the teacher had said. "She's going to do important things." That little girl had been fearless, curious, unaware that her body would become a liability. Emma held on to that memory now, a lifeline in the drowning. Somewhere inside her was still that girl who believed she deserved to take up space, who didn't apologize for breathing. She'd forgotten her for a long time, But sitting in seat 23B with Derek's hatred radiating beside her, Emma felt something stir. Not quite anger yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The decision point came when Derek stood up to use the bathroom, deliberately bumping Emma's shoulder as he passed. "Excuse me," he said with exaggerated sarcasm, making sure everyone heard. Emma opened her mouth to apologize, as she always did, as she'd been trained to do. But something stopped her. She wasn't in his way. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was sitting in a seat she'd paid for, taking up only the space that was hers. Why was she always the one apologizing? She watched Derek walk down the aisle, saw him stop to chat with a flight attendant, saw him gesture back toward their row. He was probably asking again to switch seats, or filing his complaint, or finding new ways to make her feel subhuman. And suddenly Emma was tired, so deeply, bone-achingly tired of shrinking, of apologizing, of accepting cruelty as though it were weather, something to be endured. She didn't know what to do with this feeling yet, but she knew she couldn't keep swallowing the pain. The spark that would change everything came from an unexpected source. A man in a flight attendant uniform appeared beside her row, but he wasn't part of the usual crew. He was tall, maybe 45, with kind eyes and graying temples. "Excuse me," he said gently, crouching slightly so he was at Emma's eye level. "I'm Captain Marcus Chan. I'm deadheading back to Boston, but I couldn't help noticing what's been happening." His voice was quiet, meant only for her. "That passenger's behavior is unacceptable. I want you to know that you have done nothing wrong." Emma stared at him, stunned. No one had ever intervened before. No one had ever acknowledged that she was the one being wronged. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different. Marcus handed her a tissue. "Give me 5 minutes," he said. "I'm going to fix this." He stood and walked toward the front of the plane with purpose, his shoulders squared, his stride confident. Emma watched him go, her heart pounding with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The rage hit Emma like a wave when Derek returned from the bathroom, still wearing that smug expression. But now, instead of shrinking from it, she let herself feel it. Really feel it. 28 years of swallowed insults, of laughed-off cruelty, of pretending she deserved the mistreatment, because that was easier than fighting back. Every diet her mother had forced on her. Every doctor who'd blamed her weight for unrelated health issues. Every job interview where she'd been passed over for someone thinner. Every date who'd seemed interested until they saw her full-body photos. Every stranger who'd felt entitled to comment on what she ate, where she sat, whether she existed. The rage was hot and clean, and it burned away the shame like fog in sunlight. She wasn't the problem. People like Derek were the problem. A society that treated human beings as less than based on their body size was the problem. Emma's hands stopped shaking, her jaw unclenched. She looked at Derek with new eyes, not the eyes of a victim, but of someone who was done being victimized. In the hour that followed Marcus's intervention, Emma did something she'd never done before. She started researching. She pulled out her laptop, ignoring Derek's irritated sighs about her elbow space, and typed "airline passenger rights plus-size travelers" into Google. Page after page of information loaded. She learned that the FAA requires airlines to accommodate passengers of all sizes. She learned about complaints processes, about documentation, about legal precedents. She read stories from other fat travelers who'd been humiliated, discriminated against, treated as problems rather than paying customers. There were advocacy groups, lawyers who specialized in these cases, activists fighting for change. Emma had always assumed she was alone in these experiences, that her shame was private and deserved. But here was evidence of a systemic issue, of thousands of people fighting back, demanding dignity. She bookmarked articles. She took screenshots. She wrote down names of organizations. The anger wasn't dissipating. It was crystallizing into something more powerful. Determination. Her first small act of defiance was subtle but significant. When the beverage cart came around, Derek ordered a scotch and immediately spread out, his elbow claiming the entire armrest, his leg pushing into Emma's space. In the past, she would have contorted herself to avoid contact, would have made herself smaller to accommodate his aggression. This time, she didn't move. She sat normally, taking up her own seat space, not apologizing for her body's existence. When his elbow bumped hers, she didn't flinch away. She held her ground. Derek glanced at her, surprised, expecting her to retreat. When she didn't, his face reddened. "Do you mind?" he snapped. Emma looked at him directly for the first time since boarding. "I'm in my seat," she said calmly. "Just like you're in yours." Her voice was steady, quiet but firm. Derek blinked, momentarily thrown. He'd expected compliance. Emma turned back to her laptop, her heart racing but her hands steady. It was such a small thing, not moving, but it felt revolutionary. The unexpected ally appeared 15 minutes later when Captain Chen returned, this time in his captain's uniform. He stopped at row 23 and addressed Derek directly. "Mr. Sullivan, I need you to gather your belongings and come with me." Derek's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. "Why? What's happening?" Marcus's tone was professional but firm. "Your behavior toward your fellow passenger constitutes harassment. We've documented your comments and your attempt to record without consent. The airline takes these matters seriously." Derek sputtered, his face going from red to purple. "She's the one taking up too much space. I'm the victim here." Emma watched, stunned, as Marcus didn't waver. "Sir, this passenger is in her assigned seat, using only her allocated space. Your comments have been inappropriate and your behavior has created a hostile environment. Please gather your things." Other passengers were watching now, but with different energy. Some nodded approvingly. A woman across the aisle gave Emma a discreet thumbs up. Derek grabbed his bag furiously, muttering about lawsuits and complaints. Then he followed Marcus up the aisle. Emma sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Derek attacked again in his own way, pulling out his phone as he walked toward first class and attempting to post about the discrimination against normal-sized passengers. Emma would later learn he tweeted, "Forced to move because a fat woman complained. Whatever happened to accountability? Airlines are afraid of lawsuits. #discrimination, #truth." But Marcus had already filed a formal incident report, documenting Derek's harassment, his unauthorized filming attempt, his verbal abuse. The airline's legal team would see it within hours. Derek's tweets would eventually be screenshot and shared widely, but not in the way he intended. They would become evidence of his behavior, examples of the fat phobia that fat activists had been fighting against for years. But in that moment on the plane, Emma knew none of this. She only knew that Derek was gone, that someone had believed her, that she'd been defended. The empty seat beside her felt like breathing room, like possibility, like the universe saying, "You matter." The flashback hit Emma without warning when the cabin lights dimmed for the in-flight movie. She was 9 years old at her pediatrician's office, standing on a scale while her mother and the doctor spoke about her, as if she weren't there. "She's in the 95th percentile for weight," the doctor said, his voice full of concern but devoid of kindness. "This is going to cause serious health problems if you don't address it now." Emma remembered staring at her feet, at the scuffed sneakers she'd begged for, the ones with the light-up soles. She remembered her mother's sigh, heavy with disappointment. "I don't understand it. Her sister is thin." The doctor handed her mother pamphlets about childhood obesity, about diet plans, about the importance of portion control. No one asked Emma how she felt. No one noticed she was scared. That night, her mother removed all the bad food from the house, started serving Emma different meals than the rest of the family, smaller portions on separate plates. Emma's relationship with food became fraught with shame, with surveillance, with the constant message that her body was wrong and needed to be fixed. She was 9 years old. Marcus Chun returned to her row and slid into the aisle seat, giving her space, his posture open and respectful. "I wanted to check on you," he said. "That was a difficult situation." Emma's eyes filled with tears again, the kind that came from being seen, really seen, maybe for the first time in years. "Thank you," she managed. "No one has ever done that before." Marcus nodded, his expression sad but understanding. "I'm sorry you've had to experience that. My sister is plus size, and I've watched her deal with this kind of treatment her whole life. "It's not okay. It's never been okay." He told her about Jessica, his younger sister, a nurse in San Francisco who saved lives but couldn't board a plane without anxiety. About watching her shrink herself, apologize for existing, accept cruelty as though it were her fault. "She's one of the best people I know," Marcus said, "and she shouldn't have to justify her existence every time she leaves the house." Emma felt something crack open inside her chest, some frozen place thawing. "Neither should you," Marcus added, looking at Emma directly. "Neither should anyone." Over the next hour, as the plane crossed the country, Emma practiced her voice in small ways. When the flight attendant offered snacks, she said yes without apologizing, without checking to see if Derek was watching, without making it a smaller choice to seem less greedy. She ordered a full meal, not a salad. She asked for a pillow without prefacing it with, "if it's not too much trouble." She went to the bathroom without timing it to minimize how long she'd be in the aisle. These were tiny acts, meaningless to most people, but for Emma they were revolutionary. Each time she took up space without apologizing, she felt a little bit stronger. The shame that had lived in her bones for decades was loosening its grip, not gone, but no longer absolute. She caught Marcus watching her once, and he smiled, a small nod of recognition. He understood. She was learning to believe she deserved the same basic dignity as everyone else on this plane. It was harder than it should be, but she was doing it. The awareness that others were watching came gradually. The woman across the aisle, probably 50, well-dressed, had witnessed the entire interaction with Derek. As Emma returned from the bathroom, the woman caught her eye and said quietly, "Good for you. That man was horrible." It was a small comment, but it landed like validation. 2 rows back, a young woman with headphones gave Emma a smile and a nod when their eyes met. Near the front of the cabin, a flight attendant Emma didn't recognize walked by and touched her shoulder briefly, a gesture of solidarity. Emma realized that not everyone had agreed with Derek, that some people had been disturbed by his behavior but hadn't known how to intervene. She'd spent so long assuming everyone judged her the way Derek did, that she'd missed the possibility of allies. It was a revelation. She wasn't as alone as she'd believed. There were people who saw her humanity, who understood that body size didn't determine worth. They'd been there all along. Marcus's vulnerability was revealed when Emma asked why he'd chosen to intervene. He could have stayed in his crew rest seat, minded his own business, let someone else handle the situation. "I didn't always understand," he admitted. "Growing up, I was the athletic brother, the one who fit society's expectations. I watched Jessica struggle and I thought, maybe if she just tried harder, ate better, exercised more, I was part of the problem." His face showed genuine regret. "It took her having a breakdown after a particularly awful flight for me to really see it. She sobbed and asked me why she wasn't allowed to exist in public spaces, why she had to earn the right to basic dignity, and I didn't have an answer." He'd started educating himself after that, reading about weight stigma, about the failure of diet culture, about how fat phobia was discrimination, not concern. "I can't undo my past ignorance," he said, "but I can use my position now to make sure people like Derek don't get away with cruelty." Emma felt a rush of gratitude for Jessica, for her pain that had opened her brother's eyes, and for Marcus, for doing the work to understand. Emma made a bold plan sitting there in seat 23B, emboldened by Marcus's solidarity and her own awakening rage. She was going to file a formal complaint against Derek Sullivan, document everything that had happened, make sure his behavior had consequences. She was going to write to the airline's corporate office commending Marcus and suggesting mandatory training on weight discrimination for all staff. She was going to share her story, maybe on social media, maybe in a blog post, to help other fat travelers know they weren't alone, that they didn't have to accept abuse. She was going to call her sister when she landed and tell her what happened, not in shame, but in defiance. She was going to stop hiding. The thought terrified her, but it also felt necessary, like a door opening that she couldn't close again even if she wanted to. She'd lived small for so long, trying to minimize the target on her back, but Derek had gone after her anyway. The cruelty would come whether she hid or not, so why keep hiding? The final preparation for her big move came when Marcus handed her his card, before returning to the crew rest area. "My email is on there," he said. "If you need a witness statement, if you want to file a complaint, if you just need someone to confirm that what happened was wrong, reach out." Emma took the card, her hands no longer shaking. "I'm going to do something with this," she said, surprised by the certainty in her own voice. Marcus smiled. "I believe you will." He stood to leave, then paused. "Emma, you're a data analyst, right? You see patterns. I want you to know that what happened today isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern. And patterns can be changed, but only if people like you are willing to document them, to speak up, to refuse to be silent." His words settled into her chest like stones, grounding her. She was a data analyst. She understood patterns, systems, evidence. And she was sitting on evidence now, not just of one man's cruelty, but of a systemic problem that needed addressing. By the time Marcus walked away, Emma had opened a new document on her laptop and titled it, "Documentation of Discrimination, Flight 2847. The confrontation continued at baggage claim in Boston, where Emma stood waiting for her luggage, visibly different from the woman who'd boarded in Seattle. She'd spent the descent writing, documenting every detail of the flight, every word Derek had said, every witness who'd been present. She'd pulled her hair back, straightened her shoulders, and when she walked off that plane, she didn't hunch or hurry. She moved through the airport like someone who belonged there, because she did. At the baggage carousel, she saw Derek first. He was on his phone, his voice carrying across the terminal. "They discriminated against me, moved me because I complained. Can you believe this? I'm calling corporate tomorrow, maybe getting a lawyer involved." Emma's jaw tightened. He was trying to flip the narrative, to make himself the victim. She pulled out her own phone and started recording, careful to keep it discreet but clear. If he could document, so could she. Derek's shock was visible when he spotted Emma approaching, not retreating. His expression shifted from irritation to confusion, to something that might have been concern. Emma walked divinely to him, her phone still recording in her pocket, her voice steady. "Mr. Sullivan, my name is Emma Hayes. You spent 3 hours harassing me on that flight, attempting to film me without consent, and making discriminatory comments about my body. I want you to know I filed a formal complaint with the airline, and I've documented everything." Derek's face went red. "You can't do that," he sputtered. "I didn't do anything wrong. You were the problem." Several other passengers from their flight were watching now. Some had their own phones out. Emma felt her heart racing but kept her voice calm. "You filmed me. You called me fat repeatedly. You demanded I be removed from my seat. There were 36 witnesses." Derek looked around, seeming to notice the audience for the first time. "This is harassment," he said weakly. Emma smiled, and it wasn't kind. "No, what you did was harassment. This is accountability." The public setting meant everything. They weren't in the confined space of an airplane anymore, where Derek could use social pressure and Emma's isolation against her. They were in a crowded terminal with security cameras, witnesses, and multiple exits. Emma had chosen this confrontation deliberately, had waited until they were in a space where she had power, where she could walk away if needed, where help was available if Derek escalated. Other passengers from the flight were gathering, recognizing the situation. A middle-aged black woman, Emma had noticed giving her supportive looks during the flight stepped closer. "I was 3 rows behind you," she said to Emma. "I heard everything he said. It was disgusting." Another passenger nodded. "I've got video of part of it," a young man said, holding up his phone. "Filmed it because I thought it might get worse. Happy to share it with the airline." Emma felt the shift in power, tangible as a change in air pressure. Derek was surrounded now, not by allies, but by witnesses to his cruelty. Emma spoke her truth then, not just to Derek, but to everyone listening. Her voice was clear, carrying across the baggage claim area. "I paid full price for my airline ticket, just like everyone else on that flight. I sat in my assigned seat, taking up only the space that was mine. I didn't spill into anyone else's area. I didn't violate anyone's space. I existed in public, in a body that society has decided is wrong, and I was punished for it." She turned to Derek. "You tried to humiliate me. You filmed me without consent. You demanded I be removed, as if I had no right to be there. And when the flight crew recognized your behavior was the problem, not mine, you tried to claim you were the victim. Emma's hands were steady now, her breathing even. I'm not the first fat woman you've treated this way, am I? And I won't be the last unless people start holding you accountable. Derek looked like he wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat under the weight of so many eyes watching him. The evidence Emma had compiled was damning. She pulled out her laptop right there in baggage claim, opened her documentation file, and showed it to the gathering crowd. Screenshots of Derek's text that she'd photographed over his shoulder, notes with timestamps of each discriminatory comment, the names of flight attendants who'd witnessed the interaction, Marcus Chun's contact information, the airline's incident report number that Marcus had given her. Derek's face went pale as he realized how thoroughly she'd documented everything. You can't share that, he said, his voice rising. That's private. The woman who'd offered to be a witness laughed sharply. You filmed her without permission, but she can't take notes on what you said out loud. Please. Emma met Derek's eyes. I work in data analysis. I understand the importance of documentation, of evidence, of building an irrefutable case. Everything you said and did is recorded here, time-stamped, witnessed, saved to the cloud. Emma stood her ground, literally and metaphorically, as Derek tried to physically intimidate her by stepping closer, using his height. She didn't back away. Years ago she would have. She would have shrunk, apologized, fled. But something had broken open in her on that flight. Some long-dormant sense of her own worth. Step back, she said firmly. Derek didn't move. Step back or I'll call airport security, Emma repeated. A security officer, drawn by the commotion, was already approaching. Is there a problem here? He asked. Emma smiled at the officer, calm and collected. This man harassed me on our flight from Seattle. He's now attempting to intimidate me in baggage claim. I'd like to file a report. The security officer looked at Derek, then at the crowd of witnesses, then back at Derek. Sir, I need you to come with me. Derek's bluster deflated. He grabbed his suitcase from the carousel and followed the officer, shooting Emma a look of pure hatred. She watched him go without flinching. Others began supporting Emma publicly, the ripple effect immediate and powerful. The woman who'd been 3 rows behind walked up and introduced herself as Dr. Patricia Williams, a professor of sociology at Boston University. What you just did, she said, that's the kind of resistance that changes culture. Would you be willing to be interviewed? I study weight discrimination and public shaming, and your experience is unfortunately common, but your response is remarkable. The young man with the video gave Emma his contact information. I'm a grad student in documentary filmmaking. This stuff matters. People need to see it. An older woman approached shyly. I'm plus size too, she said quietly. I've been afraid to fly for years because of incidents like this. Thank you for not backing down. Emma felt overwhelmed by the sudden solidarity, the recognition that her individual act of defiance was part of something larger. She wasn't just standing up for herself anymore. She was standing up for everyone who'd been made to feel less than because of their body size. Derek tried one last manipulation, catching up with Emma as she walked toward ground transportation. Look, he said, his voice different now, almost pleading. This has gotten out of hand. I was having a bad day. My words came out wrong. Can't we just forget this happened? Emma stopped walking and turned to face him. This was the moment men like Derek counted on. The moment when women were socialized to forgive, to smooth things over, to prioritize his comfort over their own hurt. No, she said simply. Derek blinked. What? Emma stepped closer, her voice low but steady. I said no. You don't get to harass someone for hours, attempt to ruin their day, violate their dignity, and then ask for forgiveness because you got caught. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry there are consequences. She paused. Let that sink in. I'm not here to make you feel better about being cruel. I'm here to make sure you think twice before doing it to someone else. Derek's face hardened again. You're going to regret this. Emma smiled. Maybe, but you're definitely going to regret it more. Emma didn't recede, didn't soften, didn't make herself smaller to ease the tension. Every instinct in her body screamed to apologize, to smooth things over, to be the good fat person who didn't make waves. But she thought about Marcus's sister Jessica, about the woman at baggage claim who'd been too afraid to fly, about every fat person who'd been humiliated in public and told it was their fault. She thought about that 9-year-old girl standing on a scale, being discussed like a problem to solve. She thought about every diet, every shame, every moment of trying to disappear. And she decided, no more. I'm done shrinking, she told Derek. I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done pretending that cruelty is normal or acceptable or something I need to tolerate. You targeted the wrong person today. Behind her, several of the witnesses from the flight had followed, forming an inadvertent wall of support. Derek looked at them, at Emma, and seemed to realize he'd lost. He turned and walked away, his shoulders tight with anger. Emma watched him go, and for the first time in years, she felt powerful. The unexpected revelation came when Emma checked her phone and saw that Derek Sullivan's social media was already exploding with response to his tweets about the flight. But not the response he'd wanted. People were calling him out, sharing their own stories of discrimination, tagging the airline to demand action. Someone had identified him, found his LinkedIn, his company profile. His employer's social media was being flooded with messages about his behavior. Emma hadn't tagged him, hadn't shared his name publicly, but other passengers had. The video the grad student had filmed was already being shared, thousands of views in just an hour. Emma felt a moment of complicated emotion. This was more than she'd intended, and part of her worried it would get out of control. But then she read the comments. Hundreds of fat people thanking her, sharing their own stories, saying they'd been waiting for someone to fight back. You didn't do this to him, Dr. Williams said, appearing beside Emma. He did this to himself. Actions have consequences. That's how society changes. The tide turned completely when the airline released a public statement within 3 hours of landing. Emma's phone buzzed with a notification, and she opened the airline's official social media to see a post pinned to the top. We are aware of an incident on Flight 2847 involving passenger harassment. The individual in question has been permanently banned from our airline. We have zero tolerance for discrimination of any kind. We are reviewing our training protocols to better support all passengers. We apologize to the passenger who was targeted and commend our crew for their intervention. Emma read it 3 times, unable to believe it was real. Permanent ban. Public acknowledgement. Apology. Below the post, thousands of comments applauded the airline, with many saying it was about time companies took fat phobia seriously. Derek Sullivan had gotten exactly what he wanted. Attention. Just not the kind he'd expected. Derek Sullivan's fall was swift and public. By the next morning, his company had placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. His tweets had been screenshot and shared widely, becoming an example in think pieces about workplace discrimination and unconscious bias. His LinkedIn was flooded with comments. Multiple former colleagues came forward with stories of his behavior in the office, his discriminatory comments about employees, his history of complaints that HR had apparently ignored. Emma learned all this from Dr. Williams, who was tracking the story for her research. This is bigger than one flight, Patricia explained. This is about visibility. You made visible something that usually happens in silence. And once it's visible, it can't be ignored. Emma felt strange about it all, not quite triumphant, not quite comfortable with the magnitude of Derek's consequences. But when she remembered his face as he'd filmed her, his voice as he'd demanded she be removed, his complete lack of concern for her humanity, she found she couldn't feel too guilty. Sometimes karma was swift. Sometimes people had to face what they'd done. Emma spent the week of her sister's wedding processing what had happened. The enormity of it settling into her bones like new knowledge, like a language she was learning to speak. At the rehearsal dinner, her sister Rachel pulled her aside, concern on her face. I saw the video, Rachel said. Em, are you okay? That was horrible. Emma surprised herself by laughing. I am, actually. For the first time in a long time. She told Rachel everything, not just about the flight, but about the years of carrying shame, of making herself small, of believing she deserved the cruelty. "I'm done with that," Emma said. "I'm done apologizing for my body." Rachel hugged her fiercely. "Good. I've been watching you disappear for years, and I didn't know how to help." That night, standing as maid of honor in a dress she actually loved, Emma gave her speech without the self-deprecating jokes she'd planned. She spoke about love, about choosing to be brave, about showing up fully. The room applauded, and Emma felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with her body size. New opportunities emerged almost immediately. Dr. Patricia Williams invited Emma to speak to her sociology class about the incident, about fat phobia and resistance. "Your students need to hear from someone who lived it," Patricia said. Emma agreed, terrified but determined. Standing in front of 60 college students, sharing her story, answering their questions, she felt something shift. These young people were angry on her behalf, shocked that this kind of discrimination still happened, eager to understand how to be better allies. Several plus-size students stayed after to thank her, to share their own experiences, to say they'd felt alone until now. One young woman, tears streaming down her face, said, "I've been thinking about not coming back next semester because the campus is so hostile to fat students. But if you can stand up like that, maybe I can too." Emma's heart broke and swelled simultaneously. She was making a difference, not through grand gestures, but through simple visibility, through refusing to accept shame. Emma invested in herself in ways she'd never allowed before. She'd always put self-care on hold, telling herself she'd deserve it when she lost weight, when she was smaller, when she was better. No more. She joined a gym that advertised as body neutral, focused on movement for joy rather than weight loss. She worked with a therapist who specialized in eating disorders and body image. She bought clothes that fit, that she liked, that weren't chosen to hide or minimize. She got a haircut from an expensive stylist instead of the cheap place she usually went. She took a photography class she'd been putting off, told herself she'd wait until she was more photogenic. Each investment felt radical, felt like reclaiming space she'd been taught she didn't deserve. Her bank account noticed, but her spirit noticed more. She was treating herself like someone worth investing in, and the shift was profound. The world began responding to her differently too, reflecting back the confidence she was slowly building. Her physical transformation had nothing to do with weight loss and everything to do with presence. Emma started walking differently, not hunched and hurried, but upright and deliberate. She made eye contact on the street instead of staring at the ground. She wore colors instead of hiding in black. She got visible. A bright red coat, dangling earrings, boots that clicked when she walked. People noticed, but their noticing felt different now, because her relationship to being seen had changed. She wasn't trying to disappear anymore, wasn't apologizing for taking up space. A co-worker who'd barely spoken to her before started conversations in the break room. A barista at her usual coffee shop asked her out. Her sister texted, "You look different in your photos. Happier." Emma studied herself in mirrors now, not with criticism but with curiosity, sometimes even with affection. This body had carried her through 38 years, had survived trauma and discrimination, and her own internalized hatred. It deserved better than her scorn. She was learning to give it gratitude instead. Derek Sullivan's current state was something Emma learned about accidentally when Marcus Chan called to check in. The airline's legal team wanted you to know they're prepared to support you if Sullivan tries to sue for defamation. Marcus said, "But I don't think he will. He's got his own problems." Derek had lost his job, not because of the flight incident alone, but because the publicity had prompted HR to review past complaints they'd ignored. Turns out Derek had a pattern of discriminatory behavior, of harassment, of using his position to make other people's lives difficult. His professional reputation was destroyed. His social media was a wasteland of criticism. Emma felt complicated about it. "Should I feel bad?" she asked Marcus. "That seems like a steep price for being an asshole on an airplane." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Emma, that man tried to destroy your dignity for his own entertainment. He filmed you without consent. He tried to get you removed from a flight you'd paid for. And when he faced consequences, he tried to play victim. You didn't do this to him. His own actions did." A romantic subplot developed unexpectedly when the barista who'd asked Emma out turned out to be thoughtful, kind, and genuinely interested in who she was beyond her appearance. His name was James, 36, a poet who worked at the coffee shop while finishing his MFA. Their first date was at a bookstore, wandering the aisles and recommending favorites to each other. James never mentioned her body except to compliment her red coat, her smile, her laugh. When Emma nervously brought up her weight on their third date, James looked confused. I mean, yeah, you're fat. So what? You're also brilliant and funny, and you've got this way of explaining complex things that makes them beautiful. Why would I care about your size? Emma had cried then, unexpected tears. James held her hand. Someone hurt you badly, he said. It wasn't a question. Emma nodded. A lot of someone's. For a long time. James squeezed her hand. I'm not them. And I'm going to prove it to you if you'll let me. Emma was learning to let herself be loved. Loved without conditions. Loved as she was. It was harder and more healing than she'd expected. A new challenge arrived when Emma was invited to give a TEDx talk about her experience. The invitation came from the organizers of Boston's TED's Beacon Street, who'd seen the airline video and read her subsequent blog posts about body discrimination. We think your story could really resonate, the organizer said. Emma's first instinct was to say no, to hide again, to not put herself on a literal stage for judgment. That she thought about that college student who'd considered leaving school, about all the fat people who'd messaged her saying they'd felt alone until they saw her video. Yes, she said, her voice shaking. I'll do it. The preparation was intense. Writing the talk, practicing it, learning to stand in front of a camera without flinching. Emma worked with a speaking coach who specialized in body language. You keep making yourself smaller, the coach said. Take up space. Use gestures. Own the stage. Emma practiced in her living room, arms wide, voice projected, claiming space. It felt absurd until it felt powerful. Emma had a moment of doubt the night before the TEDx talk. She sat in her hotel room, paralyzed by anxiety. What if she messed up? What if people hated her? What if she wasn't articulate enough, smart enough, thin enough to be taken seriously? The old voices were screaming in her head, telling her to cancel, to hide, to protect herself from potential judgment. She called Rachel, desperate. I can't do this, Emma said. I'm not brave enough. Rachel was silent for a long moment. Do you remember when we were kids and you stood up to Jason Miller for bullying me? You were 11. He was 14 and twice your size. You didn't hesitate. Emma had forgotten that. He was hurting you, she said. Rachel laughed. Exactly. And Derek hurt you. And people like Derek are hurting fat people every single day. You're not speaking up for yourself anymore, Em. You're speaking up for all of them. Emma felt something settle in her chest. Rachel was right. This wasn't about her courage. It was about collective healing. Emma remembered her journey, all of it, as she stood backstage waiting to go on. The little girl on the scale. The teenager who'd starved herself through prom. The woman who'd made herself invisible in meetings at work. The countless moments of shame and silence and swallowed pain. She remembered Derek's face on that plane, his cruelty. She remembered Marcus's kindness, his intervention. She remembered the passengers who'd witnessed and supported. She remembered the messages from strangers, from fat people who'd seen themselves in her story, who'd felt less alone. She remembered James's hand in hers, his simple acceptance. She remembered Rachel's pride. She remembered that college student's tears. And she remembered that morning at baggage claim when she decided she was done shrinking. All of it had led to this moment, to this stage, to this opportunity to make meaning from pain. The stage manager gave her the signal. Emma took a breath and walked into the light, shoulders back, head high, ready to tell her truth. Emma's important milestone came when the TEDx video went viral, over 1 million views in the first week. She woke up to messages flooding her email, her social media, her phone, organizations wanting her to speak, journalists requesting interviews, a literary agent asking if she'd considered writing a book. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, terrifying. Emma called Dr. Patricia Williams for advice. This is what happens when you touch a nerve, Patricia said. You've articulated something millions of people feel but couldn't express. Now you have a choice about what to do with that platform." Emma thought about it for days. She could go back to her quiet life, her data analysis job, her comfortable anonymity, or she could lean into this new role, this unexpected activism. She thought about the college student, about the woman too afraid to fly, about every fat person who'd been made to feel less than. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. She became the person she'd needed when she was suffering. Emma started a blog called Taking Up Space, documenting her ongoing journey and creating resources for other fat people navigating discrimination. She compiled information about passenger rights on airlines, about filing complaints, about documentation. She interviewed plus-size travelers about their experiences and published their stories with permission. She created a database of body-positive therapists, fat-friendly doctors, inclusive gyms. She partnered with Dr. Williams to conduct research on weight discrimination in public spaces. She gave talks at colleges, at conferences, at diversity trainings. She wasn't a perfect activist. She messed up sometimes, said the wrong thing, faced criticism from within the fat acceptance community about not being radical enough or being too radical. But she kept showing up, kept learning, kept using her voice. Her life had become about more than surviving. It had become about changing the conditions that had made survival so hard in the first place. Her work took on new dimensions when she joined the board of a national organization fighting weight discrimination, the NAFA, National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. Had been doing this work for decades, and Emma had so much to learn from longtime activists. She threw herself into education, understanding intersectionality, recognizing how fat phobia compounded with racism, ableism, classism. She learned about the history of the fat acceptance movement, about the activists who'd come before her, about the battles already fought and won and lost. She learned humility, learned that her viral moment was one small part of a much larger struggle. She used her platform to amplify other voices, especially fat activists of color, disabled fat activists, poor fat activists whose stories were less likely to go viral. Emma's individual transformation had become part of collective movement. She'd found her purpose, and it was bigger than she ever imagined it could be. She was no longer the woman trying to disappear on that plane. She was someone who helped others learn to be visible. Emma's victory moment didn't come with fanfare or public recognition. It came on an ordinary Tuesday morning, 6 months after the flight, when she woke up and realized she hadn't thought about her weight before getting out of bed. For years, her first conscious thought every morning had been about her body. A wave of shame and self-loathing that colored every subsequent moment. But this morning, she'd thought about her to-do list, about the interview she had later, about whether she needed to buy cat food. Her body was just the thing carrying her through the day, not a problem to solve or a failure to hide. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, really looked at herself, and felt neutral. Not self-love yet, maybe that would come later, but the absence of hatred felt like profound peace. Emma touched her reflection, this face she'd criticized for so long, these arms, this belly. "We're done fighting," she whispered. Her reflection seemed to agree. Derek Sullivan's life had changed too. Emma learned from a mutual connection on LinkedIn. He'd moved to a different city, taken a lower-level position at a much smaller company. His social media was dormant, his public presence minimal. Emma felt no triumph in his diminishment, no satisfaction in his professional fall. What she felt was something more complicated, a recognition that accountability was necessary but painful, that consequences were just but heavy, that nobody won when the game was cruelty. She'd never contacted him directly after that day, at baggage claim, never sought further revenge or public shaming beyond what had naturally unfolded. Some people had criticized her for not being angrier, for not pushing for legal action beyond the airline complaint. But Emma understood something they didn't. Derek wasn't her villain anymore. He was just a sad man who'd acted cruelly and faced consequences. Her energy was better spent building something new than burning down his life. That was its own kind of power. Emma offered grace, sort of, when Derek sent an email exactly 7 months after the flight. She almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. "Ms. Hayes," it began, formal and stiff. "I'm writing to apologize for my behavior on Flight 2847. What I did was wrong. I was cruel and discriminatory, and I hurt you. I've spent these months in therapy trying to understand why I acted that way. I learned things about myself I'm not proud of. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you were right to call me out, and I'm sorry." Emma read it 3 times. She showed it to James, to Rachel, to Patricia. "What do you think?" she asked each of them. They all said some version of the same thing. "What do you feel?" Emma sat with that. She didn't feel forgiveness exactly, but she didn't feel hatred either. She felt tired of carrying Derek in her head. She wrote back a single line: "I accept your apology. I hope you do better." Then she archived the email and moved on. Some people said she'd been too kind. Some said she'd been too harsh. Emma decided she didn't care. It was her grace to offer or withhold. The reflection on her journey came during a podcast interview with Roxane Gay, whose writing on bodies and power had influenced Emma's own thinking. Roxane asked, "What's the most important thing you learned from all this?" Emma considered carefully. "I learned that visibility is a double-edged sword. Being seen meant being vulnerable to judgment, to criticism, to the world's cruelty. That invisibility was its own cruelty, self-imposed. I spent decades hiding, and it didn't protect me. Derek went after me anyway. So I decided if I was going to be a target regardless, I might as well be a visible one on my own terms." She paused. "I also learned that individual acts of resistance can spark collective change, but only if you're willing to do the work beyond your own healing. My viral moment meant nothing without the hard, boring work of activism that came after." Roxane nodded. "You're doing the work." Emma smiled. "I'm trying every day." The interview would become one of the podcast's most downloaded episodes. Emma's new life was established and thriving by the 1-year anniversary of the flight. She'd left her corporate data analysis job to work full-time for NAAFA, using her analytical skills to document patterns of discrimination, to build evidence for policy changes, to support legal cases. She'd published a book, Taking Up Space, a fat woman's guide to refusing shame, that had become a bestseller in its category. She'd given dozens of talks, influenced airline policy reviews at 3 major carriers, consulted on a documentary about weight stigma. Her relationship with James had deepened. They'd moved in together, were talking about marriage, were building a life that included fierce love and mutual respect and really good coffee every morning. Her friendship with Marcus Chen had remained strong. They'd become co-advocates, tag-teaming presentations and supporting each other's work. She'd reconnected with her parents, had difficult conversations about childhood trauma, was slowly rebuilding trust. Her life was full in ways she'd never imagined possible. Her body was celebrated, finally, not despite its size but inclusive of it. Emma did a photo shoot for a magazine feature about fat activists, wearing clothes that fit and flattered, posing without trying to hide or minimize. The photographer was plus-size herself, understood angles and lighting, and how to capture fat bodies without fetishizing or pathologizing them. When Emma saw the proofs, she cried, not from shame or disappointment, but from recognition. That woman in the photos was beautiful, strong and soft, powerful and vulnerable, taking up space unapologetically. The woman in the photos was her. "I kept trying to love my body," Emma told the interviewer, "and it felt impossible. So I changed the goal. I decided to respect my body, respect what it does for me, how it moves through the world, how it survived everything that's tried to break it. Respect felt achievable when love felt too far away. And somewhere along the journey from respect to acceptance, something like love started sneaking in too. The quote would be pulled out and shared thousands of times. The full circle moment happened when Emma was invited back to speak at an aviation conference, this time addressing flight crews about discrimination and intervention. She stood at the podium in a conference room in Atlanta, looking out at hundreds of flight attendants, pilots, and airline executives. She told them about Flight 2847, about Derek, about Marcus's intervention. One person's kindness changed the trajectory of my life, she said. Captain Chun's willingness to use his authority, to believe me, to prioritize my dignity over avoiding conflict. That's what good allyship looks like. But here's what else I learned. I shouldn't have needed a hero. The system should have been in place to prevent the situation entirely. She presented data then, her analyst skills shining, showing patterns of complaints, of discrimination, of passengers who'd been traumatized by in-flight harassment. You have the power to change this, she told them. Every time you intervene, you're not just helping one person. You're showing everyone watching that cruelty won't be tolerated. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Emma had changed the system in small but significant ways. 3 major airlines had revised their training protocols, adding modules on weight stigma and discrimination. 2 carriers had changed their policies about asking plus-size passengers to purchase additional seats. Congress had held hearings on airline discrimination where Emma had testified. A federal court had ruled in favor of a fat plaintiff in a precedent-setting case, citing Emma's documentation as evidence of systemic discrimination. Multiple universities now included weight stigma in their diversity and inclusion curricula. A popular TV show had done an episode based loosely on Emma's story, reaching millions of viewers. None of it was revolutionary. None of it changed everything overnight. But the aggregate of small changes was momentum. The cultural conversation had shifted, just slightly. Fat people had more language to name their experiences, more tools to fight back, more examples of resistance succeeding. Emma's contribution was one drop in a river, but the river was flowing. The final encounter with Marcus happened at that aviation conference. They had dinner together after Emma's keynote, catching up on life and work. Marcus told her about Jessica, who was finally planning a vacation that required flying. Her first leisure flight in 8 years. She said she felt brave enough because of you, Marcus said. Because she saw that someone stood up and survived. That the world didn't end. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Your sister made you brave enough to intervene for me, she said. And that intervention made me brave enough to speak up. And now I'm making her brave enough to fly. It's all connected. Marcus nodded. That's how change works. One person at a time, reaching back to help the next person forward. Before they parted, Marcus gave Emma a small wrapped box. Inside was a tiny silver airplane on a chain. For taking flight, he said. Emma put it on immediately and didn't take it off for years, a reminder that she'd learned to soar. Emma's new dream and mission crystallized when a young woman contacted her through the blog. Her name was Ashley, 19, a college freshman, plus size and terrified. She'd been humiliated at her university gym, filmed by other students, and the video was circulating on campus. She was thinking about dropping out, about disappearing, about giving up. I don't know how to fight this, Ashley wrote. Everyone says just lose weight, like that's a solution. I'm so tired. Emma called her immediately, spent 2 hours on the phone sharing her story, listening to Ashley's pain, offering resources and support and validation. You're not crazy, Emma told her. You're not weak. You're facing a hostile world, and that takes incredible strength. She connected Ashley with a Lavia, a therapist, campus advocates. She walked Ashley through documentation, through self-care, through the long, hard process of healing and fighting simultaneously. 6 months later, Ashley had filed a successful Title X complaint against her university. She'd stayed in school. She'd joined the campus body positivity club. She'd started her own blog. She'd survived. Creating what came next felt natural and necessary. Emma founded a non-profit called Space, dedicated to supporting fat people facing discrimination. They offered legal support, therapy connections, documentation resources, activist training. They partnered with airlines, universities, workplaces to implement anti-discrimination policies. They built community for fat people who'd been isolated by stigma. Within 2 years, Space had chapters in 20 cities, a staff of 15, a budget of $2 million. Emma wasn't the director. She'd hired someone with more non-profit experience for that, but she served as board chair and lead advocate. The work was hard, sometimes heartbreaking, always underfunded. but it was also joyful in the way that purpose is joyful. Emma would get messages from people who'd use Space's resources to file complaints, to stand up to discrimination, to find community. Each message reminded her why the work mattered. She'd found her calling at 38 years old, born from pain but built on hope. What came next for Emma was unknown, but exciting. She was writing a second book, this one about building movement and sustaining activism. She was in talks to consult on a documentary. She was considering running for local office, wanting to fight discrimination from inside the system. She and James were planning their wedding, a celebration of love that included her whole community of activists and allies. She'd bought a house with a big backyard for Fitzgerald and any future cats. She was learning to cook, to garden, to exist in her body without constant negotiation. She was teaching, mentoring, connecting, building. Her life had become so much bigger than she'd imagined possible on that morning when she boarded Flight 2847. Sometimes she thought about the woman she'd been then, anxious, apologetic, making herself small. She felt compassion for that woman, gratitude that she'd survived, pride that she'd transformed. "Thank you," Emma whispered sometimes to her former self, "for holding on long enough to become me." Emma Hayes' transformation wasn't about losing weight or becoming more acceptable to the world. It was about refusing to accept that her body made her less deserving of dignity, respect, and space. She learned that individual resistance becomes collective power when you're willing to do the work beyond your own healing. One confrontation on an airplane sparked a movement, but only because Emma and countless others kept showing up, kept documenting, kept fighting. Her story reminds us that the cruelty we face isn't our fault, but our resistance to that cruelty can change the world. Your body isn't your limitation, it's your vehicle through life. Your voice matters, no matter what size you wear. Your story isn't over just because someone told you that you don't belong. You deserve to take up space, to breathe deeply, to exist without apology. There are allies waiting to support you, communities ready to embrace you, and power within you that cruelty cannot extinguish. If this story moved you, drop a comment sharing your thoughts or your own experience. Subscribe for more stories of women who refuse to shrink, who stand up to injustice, and who transform pain into power. Emma's journey continues, and so does yours. I'll see you in the next one.